It's a new year, and yeah, it's the second episode. Who knew we could get back in the saddle this quickly? Hey, coming up, we're going to talk about the podcast and the art of the conversation. All that and more up next on the EduTech Guys.
You're listening to the EduTech Guys, edutechguys.com. Welcome to the EduTech Guys. I'm David Henderson.
Hey, and I'm Jeff Madlock.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in, turning on, downloading, grabbing the stuff.
The stuff. You know, it's funny. We our first episode of the new year was a lunch episode. We're going to do a lot more of those because it's easier for David and I to get together at lunch. And this one happens to be a midnight episode.
That's right. EduTech Guys After Dark.
Yeah. A lot of blue words coming up. Yeah.
Like I'm blue and dabba-doo, babba-doo, and dabba.
Like navy and blue and
don't forget sky
blue, ocean,
royal.
Hey, thanks for listening to EduTech Guys. Hey, you can catch us on the web, edutechguys.com. Just go out to Google, type in EduTech Guys. You're going to find us. We're on all the social medias. EduTech Guys. Yes, we're back, and we're glad to be back. It's been a while, and it's fun to get back into the old routine of making sure we have a podcast episode, and we're doing this one remotely, 100 miles away from each other, so that even works out too.
Yeah, just hanging out on a Saturday night / into Sunday morning, and see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. Oh dear.
That's right.
It's funny.
Hide your women, hide your child, hide your children.
We are actually kind of disappointed. We should be heading to FETC about now.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But things happen in life, and sometimes you gotta drop back and punt. So we hope to bring you some post conference interviews after the conference. We have a lot of our regulars and some new clients that really want to come on the show and tell us about their experiences and new products. A lot of people use this time to release new products and services, and so we're looking forward to spending that time with them after the fact, I guess.
Yeah, I'm really thankful, to be just blunt about it, that so many of them have responded positively to it's going to come out wrong. I was going to say they've responded positively to the fact we're not going to be there. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that we sent out word and said, hey, sorry, we're not going to be there, but we do have these an alternate idea in terms of maybe doing some post-conference episodes and still getting the word out there through our reaches. And so, they seemed to be happy to participate in that, and very sorry that things just didn't work out. But since our vocations have changed a bit here in the last few months, we'll get things worked out eventually. It's just a matter of kind of working through some of those kinks, but we'll get it figured out. And again, I definitely appreciate those clients, those companies, those folks that we love to sit and visit with, being flexible enough to work with us kind of through this. So very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. And, in doing this, it always helps to remind us that everyone really likes the face-to-face. They love the energy of a face-to-face. Zooms are great, and we do, most podcasters, us included, that's how we do most of our interviews, is through a Zoom or, like right now we're using Zencaster, Riverside, whatever the smorgasbord of choice is at the time. That's what we use. But it's really the excitement of getting to come in and sit down in a live face-to-face. And I think that's what, we were talking about, what we're going to try to talk about this on the podcast moving forward. And this episode is maybe a quick conversation, but I really think that I've been thinking about it a lot. And the art of conversation amongst our students, amongst humans, is kind of dead. I mean, yes, a lot of people luckily still get together in book clubs and have coffees and get together with their friends and have discussions. But most of the time, even in family situations, there's you're busy looking at your phone at the same time, or your heads are just stuck in your phones. And
Yeah.
so the art of conversation is not dead, but it's the heart of rock and roll is still beating.
That's right.
but it's kind of on life support, and I think that's what excites people about a podcast, and I think it has somewhat saved the art of the conversation, because the amount of people that listen to podcasts is pretty amazing, and so they're listening for that conversation. And I think if you listen to a lot of podcasts like we do, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I find myself involved in the conversation on my end. Okay, maybe it's a little psychopathic. I don't know.
Well, no, I think, well, to me, that is part of what makes, I hate to use the word good, but I'm going to anyway. To me, that's what kind of makes a good podcast, something that you feel like you are being included in the conversation, right? I'm sure we've seen, especially in the old school TV interviews, but even some of the podcasts that I've listened to that are kind of, I don't know, either one-sided or overly scripted, or even where it's not necessarily scripted, but perhaps the set of questions, is there 1 to 10, and there's no break from it. There's no diverting from it. It is what it is. And so basically it just becomes kind of a tennis match where you just sort of listen passively. I think, and especially in terms of the art of conversation, when you have podcasts that are conversational, where you are having that interaction, and as a listener, the audience member is made a part of that conversation, which I know is very hard because it's recorded. This is all recorded and, all that kind of stuff. But still, the fact that when we, and Jeff and I do this a lot, but when we're talking, we often say you're the listener, and we're talking to you during this conversation as well. So I hope anyway that you as a listener feel like you're a part of this, and we definitely love input. We love hearing from listeners on any of the topics that we've talked about, and I'd love to hear the things that you agree with us about, and the things that you think we are completely out in left field, or whatever. Even if it's something we haven't talked about yet, and you're like, hey, what if you talk about this, or what about that? And I think that's part of that whole art of conversation. It's the whole, literally holding a conversation, yes, between the hosts and their guests, but then also whatever involvement we can also pull in through listeners.
What's interesting about what you're talking about is, if you think back, we grew up with the late night television shows. We grew up. Oh, there's the dog.
There's the dog. Sit, Ubu, sit. Oh wait, I can't say that.
she had a little comment there. She's like, listen, your conversation's keeping me awake. It's midnight.
That's right.
Stop your talking. I was going to say, we grew up with, it's interesting. We grew up with great interviewers, Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Ed Sullivan, things like that. I didn't grow up with Ed Sullivan, but I knew who he was, and I've seen, you know what I'm saying. But I think that there's the thing that we do, and I know this is not braggadocious in any means, but I think what we do is, you have to ask the right questions, because you need the listener to feel like they know this person a little bit, and they want to get to know them more. And it's funny when we talk about conversation, very rarely do you sit down at a coffee shop, you start drinking your coffee, and you strike up a conversation with someone, and you go, so tell me what you think of the new blah, 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 blah plan.
Yeah.
You can, but inevitably you go, where you from? What do you do?
Yep.
Are you married? Have you got kids? Done any jail time? Do you have a felony warrant? I think that a lot of podcasts, they don't do that. They just, they have like, well, we got to get this done, and we're going to talk about, lasers in space. And so they jump right into lasers in space. Well, I don't know this person. I need to know a little bit more about them, because I might be a million miles away in a car going to work, but I'm part of the conversation, and I need to have a little bit of buy-in here. And, I think that's the thing that inevitably happens especially when we do face to face. When we do face to face, sure, they sit down and we talk a minute before we turn the mics on, but we come into that with kind of a familiar, atmosphere, like, oh yeah, this is familiar, and that we're talking with these folks. And inevitably, I've noticed that I was listening back to some of our conference podcasts. We refer to something we said before we went on air, before we started recording, with those folks, and that gets us back into it, and they feel comfortable and we feel comfortable. And that's a great way, not that we're telling people how to do it, but we have been doing this podcast for 11 years, and we can tell you, take a few minutes for your listeners to get to know the guests that you're talking to and yourself, hence the lead-ins that everybody does, and that's, we've been doing lead-ins forever, the ramble and chat that we do.
That's right. our own personal pre-roll stuff.
Yeah, our own, the stuff where they go, these guys are idiots.
Yeah, that's right. No, but I think that's important, especially if you're an educator and you are getting into podcasting either for yourself, or you're looking at incorporating podcasting or beefing up the podcasting that you're doing with your students in your classroom. I think it's one of the key things. One of the things that we do, and that I don't think a lot of podcasters do, is we have our guests introduce themselves and tell, and they get to tell what do they want to tell about themselves. And we do that whether they've been on the show once or they've been on 20 times. It doesn't matter. At the beginning, when they come in, we have them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about, who they are and what they do. And if we're at a conference, what are they doing at the conference? That's always been one of my favorite things, especially with when we sit down with just random folks at a conference who just, happen by, and we have a free seat and we're like, hey, come sit down. And, what are you hoping to get out of this conference? What's been your favorite thing at the conference? Really just getting to know them as you get into the interview and the conversation. That's, and I one of the things that
the fear on their face. I was going to say that look of fear on their face.
Well, there's that too. Yes. But, and it's so funny. I was just talking to somebody at work about this the other day. They were asking me about EduTechGuys, and we were talking, and every now and then the word interview, I say, slips out. I don't particularly care for the word interview, because we have really, even when we talked with and had a conversation with the governor of Arkansas, and we had a set list of questions we had to use, it was still a conversation. It was not an interview. We didn't sit down and go, question number 1, blah, 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 blah. No, it was, here are these questions. These are the things we're allowed to ask. These are the things they want us to ask. And we work that into natural language, into the natural flow of where things are going, or at least we try to. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but that's one of those things where, as someone, if you are someone who is looking to beef up your own podcast, or you're working with students to help them beef up their podcasts, that's one of the things to kind of put on your checklist is, remember, this is a conversation. You're talking to them like you pointed out. Just pretend like you're sitting at a coffee shop. I mean, how often do we tell people, look, forget all this equipment is here. None of this is here. It's just us, the 4 of us, 3 of us, however many there are. We're just hanging out at a conference, having a conversation. And inevitably, how many times at the end of that, people are like, I forgot we were even doing a podcast. So we were just talking. Yeah, that's all it is. We're just talking.
What's interesting about that is that I think what you're talking about, when we do that and it's so comfortable, and we're there to have a conversation, to get to know them, like we meeting at a coffee shop. And it's kind of like the improvisational thing when you talk about improvisers, especially comedians and stuff like that. The next thing is always yes and. Yes and, and I think that's really interesting. And when I think about podcasting and face to face and conversations, I think about the classroom and, using podcasting in the classroom because that's a great way to teach a lesson. Yes. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a great improvisational because that's literally what a lesson can become. I don't care if you teach the same lesson every year. Every year, it's a different cast of characters doing the improvisation. It's a different, yes, group coming from the audience. And I really think if you recorded those and made a podcast of your classroom, even if it was only available to that classroom from that year, for that class, I think that would be a really interesting learning tool for the listen back alone, for the teacher listen back, and for the student listen back, and for the engagement that it creates. Even if it's only 4 students that to actually engage in the recording, every student's in the room and they're going to take away something from that engagement as they watch it. How many times have we been, in the early days, we set up in the lobbies and in the hallways, and we're recording people in front of hundreds of people as they pass us. And so many people would stop and watch and then want to come back and get involved and ask, how do you do that? And what's going on? And, why are you doing this? Are you crazy?
Yes.
Are you boys morons? What's your problem? Yes, we're clowns. We're rodeo clowns. This is what we do on the side.
And yet funny now, how many conferences that, either you as a listener go to or that we have gone to that even if we've been there many, many times, now you see the hallways are full of people who set up their podcast stuff and are interviewing people. And, I'm just saying,
what are you saying, David?
Quite matter-of-factly and quite literally, at some of these conferences, we started it. We started it.
Columbus. What do you say, Magellan?
Recalculating.
There's the thing. It's not an arrogance. It's this is what you do. And we were, and it's funny to think when we first started, not only were we doing it, that we were doing it live and streaming it at the same time.
Which is actually kind of freaky scary to think about that now.
A decade ago. I mean, now it's easier to stream. I mean, it's simple, easy to stream. Back 10 years ago, trust me, people.
Oh yeah.
It was antennas and penguins and carrier pigeons and it was just 78 cables and 5 computers
and it's so funny because I can remember, especially those first couple of years, people would be like, okay, what radio station do I listen to you on? And we're like, we're on the internet. What are you talking about, radio station? Because it was such a new concept, and we were having these conversations just out in the lobby as people walked by, and especially in those early days, we were sometimes close to physically, grabbing people to come sit in the chair and just have a conversation. And I think that's also part of, as you're looking at, again, beefing up your podcast, or if you're doing podcasting in the classroom, that's one of those skills that it definitely takes some practice. It also takes some guts to force yourself out of that comfort zone of sitting in the chair behind the mic and saying, hey, I want you to come sit and talk to me. I don't know who you are. I know nothing about you. I don't even know why you're here. Come sit and talk to me. And I mean, we've done 700 interviews.
Isn't that crazy?
Pretty much doing that very thing. And that's, and again, that's, I'm not trying to brag, but by the same token, we have lots of experience in this, and we have gone through so many different aspects of it. Let us help you as you're doing this, kind of, if at all possible, maybe skip some of the growing pains, but also understand that there are going to be some growing pains. And these are some of those things, in terms of holding conversations and just getting up out of the chair and like I said, nearly literally grabbing somebody and saying, hey, come sit and talk to me. It makes it that much more entertaining. And like I said, I mean, there's going to be some growing pains, but at least someone else has gone through them, if anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can tell you to not put your hand on the stove, but sometimes you got to put your hand on the stove before you'll really. Then they go, oh well, they said don't put your hand on the stove, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
So I really hope that by the end of this episode, even though I know we're kind of all over the place as we usually are, that there are a couple of takeaways that you come out of here with. And you go, oh, I see. Yeah, okay. I see where they're going with this. I need to try this. I need to try that. Because it really is. It really is having a conversation. And I hate to use the word just, but it is. It's just a conversation. Just sit and talk. Just sit and talk with someone.
It's funny. Remember how nervous, even years into this thing, we would get right before going live like that. It was just, but that's the same thing. There's not a Broadway performer that doesn't tell you that even on the 89th run of their show, they still go on with a little bit of nerves. But I think that's what's interesting about it is that that is the entertainment and the specialness of it. Because when you think about the conversations, the big conversations in your life that you've had, they felt that same way. It was a conversation you knew you had to have, but you didn't know where it was going to go, and you didn't know how it was going to turn out. I can't tell you those early days, we both were rocking laptops, and when someone would sit down and tell us their names, we're engaging, we're multitasking at a level you can't even realize. We're holding a conversation, we're trying to keep eye contact all the time, doing research on them on the laptop at the same time we're talking to them.
Yeah, we're Googling. That? Oh yeah,
Googling whoever they were and
their
our topic. They said,
yes.
Cross parallel learning environments. Oh gosh, cross parallel. Really? Well, tell us more about that. Where are you from? We're feverishly typing away as quickly as we
can. And I will tell you, it really helped that there were two of us. So if you're putting together a podcast and you foresee a similar situation coming up, have a co-host, because seriously, the advantage to having two people is that one can be carrying the conversation while the other is doing research, and you can play off of each other on that. And I can't tell you how handy.
Still, that other person who's doing the research has got to be listening, because when they stop doing the research and the other guy's been talking for the other person, the host has been talking for 3 or 4 minutes, and they throw it to you, and you're like, what? I'm sorry, what was the question?
Sorry.
Do you like dogs? You like dogs? So, it's just like, what the heck? That's never happened to us.
Yeah, no, never at all. And never in the history of our doing this have we ever been answering somebody's question or talking with someone and halfway through our own answer forget what the freak we were trying to say.
That's just old age.
It's gonna happen, okay? And as
we didn't even start this as young chickens. We started this.
We did not.
Old hens when we started it.
We did.
Well, boy, we went off topic on that real quick.
Yeah, that's okay, but that's all part of the conversation. It's all Right. How many times have you been talking to somebody just hanging out and you start something? Now the difference is that usually, and maybe it's just me, but usually if that happens to me in kind of real life, I'll just stop and go, I have no idea what I was going to say. You can't really do that in a podcast.
You can.
Unless you can, because you can always kind of pause and get yourself back on track, and then just take that out in editing. That's one of the beautiful things about podcasting is that you can edit.
Well, and there's the thing. I mean, and I'm going to tell you, we don't edit.
Yeah, we don't. And I forget most people do.
Well, there's the thing is that all these polished podcasts with, 7,000 listeners a second, all this kind of stuff, I promise you, those interviews took 5 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but someone
still
cut out all the stuff, and somebody cut out, when you completely figure out what you were saying, or, like last night, or use a word that doesn't exist. Like last night, we were watching it was the Indiana University Oregon game, and one of the ESPN interviewers said, you've tooken.
Tooken.
My wife goes, tooken's not a word. And I said, it ain't. No, and so I'm looking up tooken. Well, come to find out, it is slang. It's not a real grammatically correct word, but But I did find out that Donnie Wahlberg and some people made a movie about a guy's dog who was taken, and it's a spoof on the movie Taken, but it's called Tooken. There you go.
That's hilarious. I did not know that.
There's your little piece of that. That's one reason to listen to 25 minutes of the EduTechGuys rambling on about conversations. Now you know the Donnie Wahlberg movie.
Obscure movie about a dog.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say it. We're getting to the end of this conversation, and we've taken up too much of your time. Hey, listen, really, if you ever need anything, holler at us. Get on the web, look up EduTechGuys, find us on social media. You can email us at contact@edutechguys.com or jeff@edutechguys.com or david@edutechguys.com. Send us questions, answers, berating emails. We don't care. Just send us an email. We need something to read.
That's right. And we don't care if it's pleasant, polite, or you go Sam Kinison on us. Just hey, reach out.
Just say it. That's all. Hey, listen, it's been a great show. I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm David Henderson.
We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the EduTech Guys. EduTechGuys.com.